When we think about entrepreneurship, we see a lot of younger generations, guys, girls, starting up startups, running businesses. A lot of that comes through social media. But there's actually the stats will say, and I'll have to get some links to those stats. They will show you that it's really more so entrepreneurs are starting their journeys later in their careers or mid careers. And today, with today's guest, we're going to chat just about that is having a phenomenal career within energy and deciding about halfway through that they have an itch to go try something new, try some entrepreneurship, to start a business, not only a business, but a technology business in the energy industry. So, Glenn Moore, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, John. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to the chat today. Your journey has been interesting. I've been following it for, well, at least 5 or 6 years, maybe more, when we first originally chatted. So looking forward to getting into it. And I think there's a lot of juicy details and insights that you have as part of your journey, the ups and the lows.
Yep.
So I guess maybe just to start off, why don't you give everyone a quick background on yourself and maybe ending off when you were at that large Canadian midstream company and had that view or started to make that decision of deciding to jump into entrepreneurship.
Sure. So again, thanks for having me. I appreciate this. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. So Glenn Moore again. If I went back to, let's call it my school days, I kind of finished up university out east in Ontario, went through the Richard Ivey School of Business, but really got focused on the operations and logistics of just some of the courses that they taught there. Made my way back to Calgary. Actually, I did a quick year in between. I did a year and a half out in South Korea. That was to probably just the travel bug and the language bug and everything else there.
So was that I got to jump in. I didn't know about this one. So South Korea, was this I need to just have some fun, not do this like career thing and grow up just to get out and travel, or was there something else there?
Not a whole bunch else to it. It
Okay.
was
That's good.
want to put myself in a place where you don't know language, you don't know culture, you don't know anything, and let's see if you can make it.
That's awesome.
First couple of days are a little scary. Once your groceries run out, you better start figuring out how to do stuff. And then after that, you start teaching English there pretty quick on the Monday. So it was just an awesome year.
Oh, right on.
So finished up there about a year and a half later. Came home. My mother's business, it was a promotional wear and outfitting business and stuff. So they do jackets and golf balls and all this stuff. And I was dropping some things off at Plains Midstream, and they were growing like mad at the time. So I happened to bump into the lady that was doing the recruiting at the time. Her name eludes me right now. I can't remember it right now, but this is about 20 years ago. And so I kind of boogied into her office, asked how I get a job here. And so she closed the office, gave me a quick interview. And a couple of days later, she said, send me a resume. And I think I was hired up within a week or so. I can't remember yet. I think I worked for a guy named Dave Mathers, Ron Wonder. I kind of worked for a few different people, but that was the start of the career.
You had that early bug or that early drive right away. You're coming in to like do a delivery and then you're walking out after doing an interview.
It was, it just seemed right up the alley. I knew I wanted to get into oil and gas, didn't know what was out there. And the guys, they seemed like pretty decent people. I knew a few of them through my mother's business. And the timing seemed right. So you just take a shot and go do it. So that was the start in logistics and kind of kicked off moving rail cars and trucks. As I kind of progressed through the business, I think I moved up fairly quickly, but we were growing so fast we couldn't get people in the door quick enough. And so you kind of get to move up, but you kind of get to keep all your old jobs at the same time. So I think I was doing everything from, at one point I was cutting a deal, putting in the deal sheet, almost writing the contract, moving the rail car, darn near sending an invoice. And then, SOC, I think the SOC compliance controls or something like that came out there, and they had to put an end to that kind of stuff pretty quick.
Yeah.
So then, I think it was probably 5 or 6 years into the biz with them. And I had an opportunity to move down south, and they moved me down to California to look after a few of the assets down there. Those assets really supported the West Coast refinery business, which was awesome to learn just how the refineries actually run, what are the different processes, the different vessels, products, ins, outs, everything about it. So that was just an unbelievable time to work for a guy down there named Virgil Majeski. Came home in 2013-ish or 14 after, I think, three and a half years. And I think that's the point where, Plains, it had grown so fast over I think 2004 I started to 2017 when I left. We'd done about 35 acquisitions as that company. The amount of people, the amount of footprint that we had, it was so big. You couldn't steer the ship anymore.
Yeah.
This thing had its own life of its own. And but as we kind of ran through all this stuff here, I think that's where the vision or the ideas started kind of coming together. And it was probably down in California, maybe a little bit when I got back to Calgary. You start to really focus on this, and there was so much volume moving around, but we never really knew exactly what was moving around, when it was moving, what was moving. It was just a whole bunch of really educated guesses on how you're just kind of fine tuning your business. But at the end of the day, we were putting ourselves at considerable risk. We move 1,000 trucks a day, and if things were a little bit off there, the guys on the risk management side couldn't, they'd be hedging differently, or hedging more financially or less financially, and that's fine if it's smaller volumes and stuff like that. But you get a big, something moves big in a day, like you can put yourself at some pretty considerable risk. So just thought, hey, like there's got to be a way to clean this up. Let's start thinking about how we digitize, automate, do all this stuff here. And a couple 3 years later, it was time to take the leap and go for it. Kind of thing. So Plains was
Right
awesome.
on.
Taught me everything from logistics to marketing to trading to managing and a whole bunch of other things in between. So I love the company to death, and that's where all this stuff kind of started from.
Great. Thanks for walking through that. So you were in, and I may get this wrong, come from oil and gas, but I don't know the full side of the logistics side of the business. But so you're working at Plains Midstream business in Canada. Sounds like it is a very entrepreneurial business from what I've seen from the outside. I would definitely agree with that.
Yep.
And phenomenal things that business did over the last, I guess, 2 decades, at least from my view.
Yep.
So you're getting a lot of different experience. You are a jack of all trades. Whatever needs to get done, you're kind of tackling it. You go into California. You continue to learn more about the business, doing a lot of the commercial and logistics side of the business. What products were those on? What were you? Was it all products or?
Down in California, it'd be more focused on the LPGs and
Okay.
maybe the gasoline side of it. But up here, it would have been in Canada, LPG and crude, almost kind of 50-50. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you're down in California, and would it be correct or safe to say that you just start to identify friction or pain points within your day-to-day business, and that's where you start to think there could be a better way to do that? And is that really where the idea, I guess we'll get to Vantage, your business today, is that where things started to kind of percolate and you started to think, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to jump out and build a solution, maybe not tech solution at that time, but like, give me a little bit of a download of what your thought process was there.
Yeah, and you're hitting it on the head. Like I think when I was in Calgary, probably didn't know enough to understand where all the problems were, and probably still don't know enough to understand where all the problems are. But down in California, it was a pretty regimented process that we had. So you get to the office about 9 a.m. We were 9 o'clock guys out there in California, and from 9 to 11, it was just a whole ton of work that the schedulers, the analysts. They're putting together all this information about all the different movements that happened yesterday or the day before, throughout the month. And at 11 o'clock sharp, it was a meeting. We bring the logistics people, the commercial people, a person from each facility. And, that meeting might be 5 minutes long. It might be an hour and 5 minutes long. But this is where we just made sure everybody's in the loop, what's going on, what we're expecting to move today, tomorrow, just getting the plan together. And then as soon as that call's over, it's go execute. And if I thought about it, we had, probably 3 schedulers and probably 2 analysts, and then maybe picking the brains of the traders. So there's, I think, 4 traders at our largest chunk. So those 2 hours every morning were wildly expensive because you just got so many people working on this stuff, trying to pull this all together. And then we have to pin down 1, 2, 3 different facilities, and you're taking operations guys away from what they should be doing, which is operations. Let those guys run those plants.
Yeah.
But it was... We had so many different levers we could pull and move things around, stuff like that. So it was absolutely critical that they knew what we were doing or what we wanted to do. So it was important to get those guys away from there. But it was just that communication piece was so important, but it just took so much time to do. So that's where we kind of said, okay, let's just start doing this a little better. I can look at everything on my phone in my entire life, my haircuts, my golf appointments, my whatever. Why can't we do this on here, kind of thing, right? Like, why can't someone just look at their phone and go, "Yep, we're in good shape"? And
Right,
I think
right.
that's kind of where we just started kicking off the concepts or the ideas. But there's,
Gotcha.
a few other small little problems that bumped into here and there, and then that was kind of the next solution or the next product kind of thing. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it started with you've got these the field tailgate meetings, figure out what you're going to do for the day, your safety meeting. So you're doing your planning sessions, 11 a.m. You have office people, obviously the ivory tower calling in,
Yeah.
logistics, commercial, some operations people, I'm sure. You've got your field ops and foreman calling in. And yeah, I've been there too. It's busy. Everyone has, their things to do. So you, in those meetings, you're figuring out what has happened yesterday, what what data do we have, and what needs to be achieved today. How are we going to best make sure that we can achieve that? And if there are potentially some problems, how are we going to put an action plan in place? So that's essentially what you're doing. And the biggest pain there was like inefficiency in getting everyone on the same page with the same information so you can make quick correct decisions. Would that be a good summary?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, during the summer, it's usually pretty steady eddy from day to day. It was those shoulder seasons that get really tough to manage. So as you're coming into the winter, you want to make sure all your storage is tippy toppy and everything's full and ready to go for the winter. All your cars are positioned properly. All the units are working well. So it was, we put things in place over time there, and it was, midnight every night. Everybody, on the operations side, you put in, okay, this is where the tank levels are. This is what, the units are running. So that the next morning, when we put this all together, I mean, it's a big spreadsheet, but you start to get good at reading this thing here, and it's just reading the book now. And so you just blast through that, and you start picking up the problems that are in there. And but those are the first pieces. Say, hey, there's something wrong here. But then from there it was, okay, we're trying to get ready for this year in the winter. We're trying to balance out our sales and stuff in the summertime. We're trying to inevitably everybody has problems. So refinery might go down or sideways or up, or different product coming out. And so you have to balance out the effects of all that stuff. But yeah, it was just keeping everybody on one page, making sure we're all fighting for the same goal. And if something falls off the side here, just tuck it back in. Just don't let that stuff go wild over 2 or 3 days or a
Right.
week or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So stick handling in real time too. So this
Yeah.
event occurred. There's a pipeline shutdown, or I guess there's a highway closed or a main transportation route. Now, what do? We have to get product from A to B, or maybe a refinery is going through turnaround or has had an event with little notice. And then what's the best alternative to keep your operation moving? That's essentially what it comes down to.
Yep. And then right after that, touch base with the guys that this might affect, and this might be the refineries, it might be suppliers, but yeah, just let's get that plan together first, and then just communicate. It was
Totally.
awesome. Yeah, they did a really great job that stuff.
Great. Okay. So you identified there's some friction in the process. There's challenges. You saw a vision of we'll call it the better world of how things could be done. And then, so take me to the next step. So I know, and we'll get into it really quickly here so people can understand, like, what does Vantage do? You guys have two
Sure.
products. So we'll get into that very quickly here. But so what were the next steps? You're down in California. So you start to think about this. You came back 2013, 14 back to
Yep.
Calgary. And then I think you said, you started up Vantage in 16?
17.
17.
So
Okay.
was
Okay.
back to the office for a few years. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. So back to the office in Calgary. It usually takes, from other people that I chat with, it takes a little while of like
Yep.
percolation to then figure out, okay, or finally go, yes, I'm going to jump. So that point of, and I think people will find this valuable and interesting, your perspective on that transition period in your career. So you've been percolating on this idea, and maybe it's evolved more since you first came across it in Cali. And you're getting to that point, I guess, about 3 years later to go make that jump. Obviously, you made that jump. So, what were the biggest, I guess, challenges with your thought, or biggest considerations to make that jump? Was it financial? Was it being able to continue providing for the family? How did you kind of think about that, and then how did you structure that ultimate? Okay, it's time to jump off this cliff.
And awesome questions. I don't know if I've rationalized all those sometimes. And yeah, there's plenty of sleepless nights.
Sometimes they don't.
Yeah, and you just, hey, we're kind of making it, so maybe we just avoid having to go through those questions. But no, really good questions. The interesting part, I think, when I got back Leadership, or there's a gentleman by the name of Dave Duckett at our office who was running that business, or running the Canadian business. So he was president of this side here on the Canadian side. Him and a few other managers up at the top, or VPs and stuff, they had visions of moving on to some different things or starting to retire. And I mean, that was probably the initial starting point of this. The guy Dave, he had such a vision for where we come from and where we got to. I wasn't seeing that in the leadership that was kind of coming up behind. And so at that point, it was like, all right, well, I'm just not sure if the leadership has a good, strong understanding of what they want to do or where they're going to go. I don't know if I can kind of get in line with this. Like doing all this stuff hard. It just didn't seem like it was going to be a really great fit. So that was the nice part. Was it was almost hey, it just starts to happen. Maybe that's the time that just jumped at the same time. So that kind of gave me there's my timelines sort of thing for when this leadership group disappears, and the guys I've loved and trusted and know and believe in and follow and do for, when they disappear, it's like, maybe that's the right time. So I kind of pinned down that timeline, roughly speaking. And then from there, it was, start putting together the business plan, what's out there, where are the different problems, and start putting these things into different buckets. And what can we actually do? Because the original variation of Vantage, I think it was Vantage O&G at the time. So we came out with logistics as well as compliance. When we started talking around the ideas, some of the investors said, hey, there's another gal over here who would like to do this on the compliance side. I said, great, I know her. Let's do this. It sounds awesome. But I let her kind of work on that side of the business. My side was logistics, and I said, okay, all the different problems that I faced as a scheduler, as an analyst, as a trader, and then ultimately as a manager before I finished up at the end of my Plains life there. These are the things that we want to try and conquer here. And let's see if we can put these into some buckets here that make a little bit of sense, like on the trucking and the rail and the pipeline side, and blah, blah, blah. And is there enough here to make a business? And so right. I think that's roughly speaking how we kind of knocked it out. As a handful of spreadsheets, a bit of a business plan. I think we were 8 or 10 pages. I'd be happy to share that one. I think I still got a copy of it. Probably pretty embarrassing now.
And everything is hindsight, right? Everything that you do and you look back and you're like, oh my goodness.
They should never have let us do this.
Yeah.
And then it was, as we started getting closer to that point, as I was getting ready to leave Plains in 2017, and then it was, okay, I got to start raising some money and stuff like that, figuring this out. And Dave was giving me a hand upstairs there he had some buddies and stuff that were interested in doing something. And he was interested in doing something and pushing the business a little further because he wanted to, explore what he wanted to do afterwards, but he wanted technology, but more of that midstream business now, as opposed to maybe it was considerably less at the Plains side. We solved our problems with people and spreadsheets.
Right.
Over here, we want to see if we can do this better, cleaner, tighter, be more efficient about it. So he supported the concept. So he, helped throw in some money here, brought some other people together. I had to raise a bunch myself. And so as the timing kind of got about right and the dollars were roughly speaking in the door, that's kind of when he said, all right, thanks. It's been a slice. And a buddy of mine, a young guy, he helped me carry my box out, and it was off to the car. And you head around home that day and you go, what have I done? But
Love it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And okay, so you gave me a lot there to unpack. I'm gonna come back and hit on a few things. That was a great, concise download. So Dave, he was someone that helped you. And this is one of my questions is everyone throughout their journey it's not an individual process, right? Anyone who says that, they're full of it because there's other people supporting you through the journey, right? It's a team effort. So would you, I guess, classify Dave as not only investor, sounds like you put some dollars in, which is always great, but also a mentor, advisor within that process? Like, did he play a significant role? Like, does he still play a role today? Or was it just for the early stages of the business?
No, I'll give you the quick Coles notes on it, but yes, starting out 100% a mentor.
Yeah.
When I first started the business, just an early riser. I'd like to come in early. So by 5:36 in the morning, I'd show up. So Dave and I were probably 1 or 2 at the office all the time.
Okay.
He had a son that had just gone through junior hockey or into junior hockey, and I had just kind of come out of junior hockey before I went to South Korea. So the first half hour of the day was usually talk about hockey and kind of the process and how this all works. And then
such a Canadian business. Yeah.
Yeah. But David gave me the download on where he started, and he started with rail car logistics, and he would laugh at the spreadsheets we have now for this stuff, and the ticker tapes. You'd have to stretch them out, and look at where every car is on this ticker tape.
So, sorry,
So
what's this ticker tape? It feels like he took us back
this
to the
is
1800s.
yeah, this is how they moved rail cars back in the day, and how they did track and trace on where the cars were. So whatever
Okay.
technology was at the time, it would spool up these little ticker tapes, and you'd stretch this thing out so you could see every one of their cars and where it was and
Oh
what
no
was
way.
on it.
So it's like route from destination A to B, and it's just as like ticker tape like stock market, but on it instead of stock symbols, it's like rail cars and where they are. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So that was Dave's start in life in oil and gas, and so he loved it. I was pretty passionate about it. I loved to know where the rail cars were, where the trucks were. So we just started to bond pretty quick. And I mean, half hour a day where you just get to talk pretty loosely about just anything. You just get to learn a pile of stuff every day, and he learns to depend on me, and I learned to, if I got a problem, you go to him. If not, solve it yourself,
Right.
and just get moving. So yeah, you want to perform, you want to show up for the big guy, and the big guy's just watching a bunch of people running around like maniacs out there. So how he held that stuff together, I don't know sometimes, but it was awesome. But that was the start of it with rail cars and track and trace and everything like that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So yeah. So you and Dave built. You had a longer term relationship, right? It's
Definitely.
mentor mentee. Those early mornings in the office. I've had some experience with that too. Like
Yeah.
that value and fun, right? It's just you learn so much on both sides. It's great.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
from there it was it was as we got towards the end of the plane stuff. That's where he said, I want to do this stuff too. I like what you're talking about, and I'd love to be an investor. And then he hooked me up with some people, and he gets me into some good relationships and things like that. And the way the business has gone though, and how we kind of came apart and came back together and stuff like that. He's a very small investor over here still today.
Right.
Just met with him the other day just for a beer to catch up and
Sure.
how's the business going, how's things doing, things like that. How can we help? So yeah, still very very
Yeah.
important
And that's
person.
typically how it happens, right? When when you're funding dollars, I think you classify yourself as a tech company in energy. When you're funding your business, you have angel investors, right? Those early investors that they see the storyline work and go the potential, usually more so the potential of the people and a bit of the opportunity. And over time, they become smaller investors, but they're very valuable, right? And typically, they're always
Wow.
there for that rainy day, that down period of the business to give them a holler and get their opinions and make sure you keep moving.
Yep. No, you hit it
So so really that jump to go on your own, you had some structure behind it. You had this mentor, Dave. He was bringing along a few other friends and family to invest, put some dollars into this to give you some runway to start building this
right. Yep.
solution. I also heard that you have those two products. You've got the supply chain solution, you have the compliance solution. You started with those, you still have them today. Now you own both, and you're running with those with your team. But there was originally, when you jumped out, I believe, a lady that was running the compliance side.
Yep.
So don't have to dive deep on that, but what
Sure.
was things change over time. So you had essentially a colleague
Yep.
once you jumped over, and you're building two solutions there, and now owning it both and running them. What happened there? Just a difference in opinions, or did she move on to something else? How did that kind of unravel?
And I don't know all the details because some of it I was part of and some of it I wasn't.
Sure, sure, yeah,
So we got going there. So we kicked off, I want to say it was October 2017, and compliance did an awesome job. And they maybe had a little more structure to what exactly they were going to build. So, but I'm not trying to make up excuses on my side here. So they get moving pretty quickly, get some really great anchor tenants on this side. So I think they picked up the Trans Mountain, Trans Canada, IPL, things like big companies, right?
right on.
Getting awesome backing and good traction and stuff like that. And they get cruising along. And we were just really, really struggling to find where we were going to get our foot in the door there on the logistics side. We didn't, while we had good ideas and good concepts and solutions, we couldn't find someone just to back it. people had been kind of struggling along and just knew how to run their businesses with what they had in the past. So they just kind of kept doing that, and they didn't
Yeah,
want
your
to take that.
biggest competition, status quo, right?
That
It's to move
yeah,
from status quo is like the
it is
competition.
tough.
Yeah, totally.
And so we keep banging our heads on the wall here for a couple of years, trying to look at this different ways and pivot a couple of times and try and figure this out. And we just couldn't get logistics going. So end of 2019, the unfortunate part is I got kind of asked to shove off. It's just we weren't gonna pull it off. And you got to think about the investors and the dollars that were in there and left and what they could do. And so they did the right thing.
Yeah, so let me jump in there just to make sure I heard that right, because I
Yeah,
think it makes sense. So there are two racehorses. You've got the client side, you have the supply chain side, which is what we're talking about, logistics.
yep,
So you get going, you make the jump, you're now running this business, your colleague, she's running the client side. You've got some very good logos. It sounds pretty quickly off the bat, which is great. Many companies wish that would just happen.
oh, you bet.
And then your logistics side of the business, supply chain, it's taking a little bit more time. I'd say maybe the typical route for startups.
Yep.
So then investors are just looking at it and going, oh, okay, well, does it make sense at this point? We've tried a bunch of things. Should we just put more resources on the compliance solution, double down, and push it? So that's kind of where a bit of the separation started.
Correct. Yep.
Got it. Okay.
So I think it was December 2019. Kind of got nudged out. No problem. I understand. This makes sense. Yeah, you got to make something of what's there or what's left there and stuff like that. So kind of part ways. A little heart to heart with yourself over. I think it was Christmas of 2019.
Sure.
Um, and then January of 2020, I was like, nope, we're not done with this. I wasn't super pleased with how we went at it on the business side and like how we tried to tackle the whole problem and go after different things and stuff. So the restart on Vantage Logistics was January 2020. I think that was the incorporation date, and so I put a couple $100,000 of my own money in, pivoted a touch in terms of how we were going to do this, and then just headed off in that direction. Um, yeah, a little bit of this would probably be a little more typical too. I mean, just that now you kind of get to that lonely road sort of thing, right? You go to the office and there's nobody in the office except for you. Had to kind of borrow some office space to kind of, in my
Yeah.
mind, you got to put the uniform on, you go to work, you come back, you get to take the uniform off. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, we got off. And then I think, the next day, I think COVID is getting, flashed in your face and stuff. And yeah, then it's, these are probably where it was more the challenging family times. It was, how long do you want to keep doing this? Do you think this is the right thing? Should we keep doing this? Do we have enough money to do this for the family?
Yeah.
And then lockdowns start happening, and you're stuck in a house here, and I love my wife and love my brand new kid and stuff, but sometimes
Totally. It's just different. Yeah.
you need some space there too. So yeah, it's really
Why
challenges
is
for
the
me.
house not big enough? I thought this house was bigger, right?
It was a
Yeah.
good size, but it's never big enough when you're
Yeah. Yeah.
COVID
That much
down. So
time. So sorry, just to come back to that. Okay. So um, the logistics side of the business, supply chain,
yep,
you carved it out. So essentially, what I heard, and just correct me here, is you essentially bought it. So you incorporated a new company. You took that technology and solution. And did you have any customers at that time, or it was still pre-customers?
we kind of had one, but yeah,
Okay.
it was one that was kind of testing stuff out, had never contracted with us, but was just kind of going on the path that this is the only dollars that we had, so they just kind of kept going on that path. But
Okay.
ultimately, we threw it all in the garbage, started over.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, entrepreneur journey 2.0.
Yeah,
And so now this new journey, you still, I love it. You took the time during Christmas of 2020, I guess, and just kind of,
2019
sorry,
Christmas. Yeah,
right. Okay. Yeah. 2019 Christmas, took some time off, thought about, okay, this could be interesting. Next steps. Do I want to do it? Probably chat with the family, etc. And then you obviously dove into it 2020, January, incorporated the business, and then started running again. And you're talking about throwing a few dollars in yourself. Okay, so this
yeah,
is maybe getting a bit more real now. So you're really, really thinking this through instead of just investor money.
yeah.
And you've got some office. You're doing the Bootstrap Hustle, which is great. It's like, hey, where can I just call a buddy and sit in the office for a little while to get this going, whatever that looked like. So who else is with you on this journey 2.0 with the Vantage
Just
logistics side?
just one other guy, Alex Giris,
Okay,
who's our CTO today.
right.
I'd been introduced to him through a friend maybe a couple years earlier. And so I've been chatting with him a little bit about this. I kind of knew this was coming in late 2019. So it's not like it just got dropped on me. I got thrown out. I think we knew this for a couple of months. And so it was time to start getting things ready. And so yeah, I talked with Alex about this and said, hey, would you be up for this? And I don't know how I talked him into this, but I said, listen, we can go at this year. I'm going to need a couple of years out of you. You're not going to get paid for it for the first 2 years, but you'll own 30% of the business. How does that sound? And to date, we haven't had a single customer yet and all these other things. So,
So he's
and
like,
he
yeah, it
said,
still seems like a gamble, but obviously he was willing to jump on and take a chance.
he was. And so he said, well, we got to kind of figure out how this is going to work. But I've got this other business, and it's called Trusted Dispatch. I work it out of here and stuff. And so I said, okay, let's go over there. I'll talk to the guy who runs the floor. I'll see if I can score a piece of office space. And it was the concept. Let's just put a piece of tape down on there, and you guys use that space, but don't touch that side. And if you start to, if you get some extra bodies, just move the tape line, right? And then just tell me what you're using, and we'll kind of make up a number each month and something like that. So I think my office space was $250 a month for the first 2 months.
Oh, awesome.
It was awesome, and it was somewhere to go, so you can kind of interact with some people, but limited, right? Because it was COVID and people had to stay away from each other and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
we did it there so that Alex could walk over for a couple hours a day and jam on some, just doing some coding and working on the ideas and thoughts and stuff. And then he'd go back over to his business where he makes his lifestyle and stuff like that. So it was
Gotcha.
not easy getting that off the ground. But yeah, Alex is still here today. We do catch salaries now, which is great. So yeah, he well deserves his. Yeah.
Totally. And you had a plan to that too. You said, here, we're going to run for a while. I'm being straightforward, transparent. I can't pay you for a period of time, but it sounds like he was also still, maintaining a life, doing some hours in a day job and then putting hours to this as well. So double shifting. We've seen that before. Yeah. And then you got to get things going, which is great. You got to make a call. How long do we have before we need to start making something or change paths or pack it up?
Yeah, and that was one piece that Alex pushed really hard. He just said, "Hey, if you just don't see this coming together, it ain't working out well. Can we please just throw up the flag sooner rather than later? Because obviously we're not, and I wasn't getting paid either at the time. Like it was just trying to put a few dollars in here, there, wherever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
if I needed a few bucks, I'd take a couple bucks, but that was about it.
Yeah. Got it.
So yeah, we
Okay.
just said, yeah, we'll throw that up in the air if we need to. But yeah, off on the path, and almost instantly we started working on an acquisition to kick this off that would really get this thing moving. So yeah,
Okay. We're gonna come to that. I just want to go back to one more thing here. So
sure.
you, just to summarize, you had the decision that took a few years, and you're seeing the change of leadership at Plains. You've got this opportunity with a mentor, bring in some dollars. You do the first Entrepreneurship 1.0, and then things start to split off. Now you're starting your 2.0 journey, and a bit more skin of the game. It's now two people, and you've decided, okay, we're going to jump in again. So when you're off in December of 19 thinking about this,
Mm-hmm.
you came from a great career, right? And I expect, and we chatted about this a little bit, there was good opportunity within that midstream company, right? You decided not to leave. You didn't think there was a good fit. That's totally fine. But I'm pretty sure you could probably go to one of the other midstream companies within Canada, and with your experience in California, probably get into midstream companies in the US as well, which is probably 10 times the market. So did you think about that? The option of, do I really want to go down this path of not making any money for my family? I'm probably going to work some crazy hours up and down from time to time. There's a bit of a risk here. Did you ever think about, should I just go back to the day gig? I can make like
Oh,
good
yeah.
money, have a good life, less stress. Take me there.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the slap in the face for me, anyways. Was maybe we're in March or something like that, and we're still kind of working towards this acquisition that was taking far longer than it should have for what we had to buy and stuff. And the wife was looking at me, kind of going, "How long do you want to keep doing this here, right? Like, I mean, your COVID's kind of slowing you down. You can't get out and see people and talk to people." You're risking a bunch more money here to go and buy this company, get this other thing going. And I didn't have a good answer for it at the time. It was just hey, let's see if this acquisition comes together here. If it does, we'll keep it going. If it doesn't, let's wrap it up. I mean, I could probably go back to Plains. I can go somewhere else. Like ultimately, that was the safety net. I think at the end of the day, if we just got to a point where this is just too much, dug a hole too deep, or whatever it was, hey, I'll just go back and get a job.
Plan B.
And it's okay. I should be able to get a job, I think, pretty easily. And that was the safety net. I just kind of held my, as you get older and stuff like that, your 20s or mid 20s, you're kind of like, I still got my parents a little bit over here, right? Okay, this was my safety net. Now I'll just go back to work. That's okay. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Tail me tucked between my legs. I'd have to take a beating from a few guys for a few years, and so you move on.
Yeah.
But no, it was we just weren't going to let that happen. So yeah,
got it.
Get
Awesome. Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing. And I think such I with a lot of people later career, and that tends to be how they think about it too. And they'll even, I think about it a little bit that way too. And some people will share a little bit more. So you say, okay, so your plan B is to go back and, go get another job in industry or wherever you came from.
Yep.
But it's definitely something they do not want to do. That is like dire straits. It's like, what is the last point, the last thread, the last activity that occurs before I absolutely have to go back? And then how long do I have to go back? Like that's something that you want to look at as well. But one thing that I hear a lot too, and you mentioned it, was I'm going to have to go back with my, tail between my legs and suck it up, and I'll get poked at. I kind of think about that too. And I've had other people say the same things, but realistically, no one else went and did it. You took a bet to go do this. The odds are extremely against you, especially in a 0-1 business startup. Like the odds are you will fail. And I know it's super tough, but it's something to look up and say, hey, like I've done well to go do this. Sure, I have to come back, but it was part of the decision process.
I'm with you on that, and I guess you'd probably think about it in two different camps. If I saw somebody go do that and they had to come back just because it didn't work out, I'd be the first guy to dust them off and say, "Hey, no problem, man. Like, come on, let's get back to work and let's go make some more money."
Yeah.
But when you
maybe say you idiot too, just for fun. But yeah,
maybe. But that would be fun. Like you see someone go out there and give her, I commend every single person that does that. Like I grew up under, my mom was an entrepreneur and raised 3 kids on that little business I'd mentioned before, just to do, apparel and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it can be done. And the freedoms that she had, and she gave us a great life and taught us lots. So, I mean, there's probably little bits of that is, hey, you got to emulate some of this stuff here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the other path is, hey, so I go out and do it, and hey, I failed. It's like, sorry, mom, sorry this, sorry that, whatever. But it's 2 different camps for sure. But I'd never look down on anybody, and I don't think anybody would look down on me. But to that point we talked about before, you're your own worst critic, right? You just kind of beat yourself up, right? So
totally. And quick one, we'll move on here. But you referenced mom a few times. Did you ever call her during this period? And like, or if not, I'd love to know if you did, because I remember calling the old man earlier in my career and him tacking me off a shelf. Yeah, did you ever call mom? And if not, did you think about those early lessons with your mom running her business and you involved? And did that help you decide to keep running with this play?
I mean, I talked to mom a ton. The unfortunate part is she passed away in 2021. It had COVID. It wasn't COVID that got her. It was cancer, unfortunately.
Okay.
So this is just kind of in the path of, okay, we get restarted here. You're kind of a year into it. It's not quite clicking here just yet. And, okay, then mom passed away and some other stuff kind of happened. So like the cards were stacking up a little bit. So
yeah,
so you can probably kind of hear me just get a little bit there for a second.
Sorry. Yeah, I did say that. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, no, it was, I think about all the different stuff, like mom's business. I remember like probably 8 years old, I think, of packing Christmas baskets for her clients or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you get those out the door. The work ethic was awesome. And it was just a piece by piece. She didn't have a huge education or anything like that, but she learned how to do accounting after a while. And she learned how to do operations after a while, learned how to do a little finance after a while. So everyone's perfectly capable of learning all this stuff if you have to. Knows you don't want to have to learn everything there. So you try and surround yourself with those good people. But yeah, there's lots of lessons learned from mom bounce some ideas off her, in the early days and stuff like that. But yeah, so
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
you
Okay.
bet.
So moving along, you're looking to speed up the growth of the business. You have some, we'll call them like early innovative customers. You're trying a few things out, and then you come across an opportunity, I believe, correct me where I'm wrong here, but you come across an opportunity to grow through acquisition. And sometimes that can be a brilliant play because for some dollars, assuming you're getting a reasonable price or deal on that acquisition, the next day you're hopefully getting some cash flow, and if not a lot of cash flow, at least some customers, some product to build on top of, etc. So give me a quick download of what was so interesting, of what you can share, what was so interesting about that business, how it fit, ultimately why you decided to acquire them, and then what has that turned into since acquiring.
So the business unit itself was called Terminal Boss, and this was owned by Schneider Electric at the time.
Right.
And if I go back far enough in time, like when I worked at Plains, Plains was very, very entrepreneurial, as you mentioned. So at the time, early 2000s, Plains wanted to start automating some different things, and so they got engaged with Schneider Electric, who was, I think they were maybe building one of their rail terminals or truck terminals or something. And they said, hey, we need to automate some of this stuff here. And through some other connections, they put together a small group. I think it was kilowatts back in the day, and then Schneider finally bought it and turned it into something else. But they wanted to automate this stuff. So Plains was even one of the people who really kind of kicked this concept off way back in the day. But the reason these guys are so important to us, I would say, was more so the customer list than anything. We couldn't find our way into that door just to say, hey, listen, like, just listen to us, talk to us. Well, why would we talk to you in that original chunk? We had nothing.
Right.
So now all of a sudden we've got 150 terminals, and I think it was probably 40 customers, 40 clients on there. Some were quite huge, some were quite small. But now all of a sudden you got your foot in the door and you want to start making some changes. Well, now they have to talk to you a little bit. And then you start to talk about your other ideas that you had before, and now they're interested in your other ideas that you had before, but they just didn't have a reason to talk to you. So that was really what kind of kicked it off. We needed to find a way to get our toe in the door there, and then we start to pull that door out, like, wide open and just start working with people and making this stuff better and improving on it. But yeah, so that was the concept behind it. And then we get the business, and it was a little bit of a dysfunctional business, I think, at the time. Lo and
Hey,
behold,
that's common. We've done it with a lot of business owners buying a new business or acquiring an existing business.
yeah.
I'd say the other side may be a little greener, but it has brown patches all over it too. It's
Oh
not
boy,
not
was it
all
ever.
gravy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, the way the business was running for them, like they were building projects, and each terminal boss was a project, and then they'd move on.
Right.
If they weren't building projects every day, that business was failing, and the
Right.
business was failing at the time because there's so many facilities out there now that they're just not building new facilities every single day.
Yeah.
And Schneider Electric had finally kind of glommed onto this and said, "Wow, it's been a little bit of a lost leader here, but it's not really fitting with us
It's not
anymore. So
fit.
let's just
Sure.
piece it out." So they pieced it out, and then so as we bring that in, we have to change the business model, get a little bit of a recurring model there, stabilize the business, but chasing projects like it was going out of style to make sure all the ends meet there in the first year-ish kind of thing, right?
Sure. Sure.
And that's how we kind of got this thing kicked off.
And that makes sense. So when I think about sales, you can do net new sales, go try to land new logos,
Yeah,
and then you can also look at the expansion play. I would tend to lean towards the expansion play every day of the week, just
yes,
because you don't get beat up as much. It's great. You're already giving value. It's how do you multiply the value for your customers? There's relationships always
absolutely.
working, but not to say I won't go chase logos. I'll definitely do that all day as well. But so essentially, that's what you've done here. Is on day one after the acquisition, you have, I think you said 150 facilities or locations with Terminal Boss assets at them. You have approximately 40 customers that are using that solution. And
Correct.
now you can play your expansion play for sales, which is you're going to talk to me, hopefully, because now you're my customer with Terminal Boss, and I want to keep providing you good service for that. And
Yep.
while you're chatting with them, you say, hey, by the way, there's also this add-on value that you can get through the Vantage solution. So that was
Correct.
essentially the play.
That was it. Yep, get it started and start improving on those things. And for each improvement, it was, hey, here's the value prop. This is what we need for time and energy and whatever else you needed, and let's get moving. And there's not a lot of people like it. Each new solution is so small and kind of inconsequential, but the volume is so big that it's very exciting on our side. To them, it's like, wow, this is really great. It'll take a little bit of work off us, streamline some things, cost us a
Yeah.
couple of dollars, so no big deal. But on our side, it's all about volume and trying to make this whole process better and build out this network. So yeah, that's how we kicked it off.
Awesome. Good strategy. I like that. So it's paid off. So kind of dance around this a little bit. And
Yeah,
I did it on purpose, just the two solutions and the value proposition and ideal customer. Let's hit on that. The reason why I pushed it off a little bit is in our pre-chat, we kind of went over how it's kind of changed over time. So I didn't want to get the audience a little bit, confused on what was it in the beginning stages, middle stages, end
sure.
stages. So let's just talk about like where it is now. So whatever order you want to go with each of the solutions, can you give me and I know this could be like, it depends, but
Yeah,
just a bit of a view on what is that ideal persona for each, that ideal customer? What do they look like? Who are they?
yep,
And some kind of an idea of what the value for that customer is, however you want to classify it.
sure. So maybe I'll start out with just the solutions to start. So there's actually three solutions now that we have as our core solutions.
But I
So
missed one.
one being Terminal Boss, and we haven't talked about it yet, but one being Terminal Boss, which is our automation digitization. Like this is the custody transfer. It's that first transaction. Like once the products come through a facility and heading out or heading in, like that's where that's the first piece of information you really need to kind of get up into the ETRM systems and everything. So in my
So this is
opinion,
just jumping quickly. So this is get everyone on the same page. Some people from outside the industry might be listening. So this is, for an example, there's many use cases, I believe, but let's say a truck with, we'll pick crude oil on it,
yep,
comes to a location. It's trucking in volume from a drilling site, a producer site, and it's going to drop it
yep,
off into a midstream trucking location. So that's the first step of the supply chain. So when the trucker shows up, they connect their hose from the truck into the receiving lines, and it's essentially the cash register is what Terminal Boss is doing. It's looking at data from like a flow computer, a meter, counting volume, probably doing some correction too for temperature, pressure, and
yep.
ultimately, like bottom line on top, it's counting how many dollars are coming from that truck and then into the facility.
You got it. Hit it
Okay,
right on the head. So that's that custody transfer point. You owned it before, they own it now. This is exactly what moved, and great, you're off to the races. So that's
great. Okay.
Terminal Boss in a nutshell. Then we move up to Wheelhouse, which is our cloud-based platform. And so the vision of having Wheelhouse up top here, this was rail, truck, pipelines, and shipping. Now, shipping we're going to get into a little bit quicker than we kind of thought, but yeah, that is something we're exporting so much product these days. There's all kinds of challenges on that end as well. So let's get all the logistics up here so that you've got one spot to go to as well. Let's say a competitor comes along, or at Plains, if we bought a company and they didn't have a terminal boss, I don't want you to rip that off and put a terminal boss on there. Let's just connect you up to Wheelhouse, and to a certain degree, let's make Wheelhouse that interactive banking, so that we can connect up all these different systems. Now you've got one clean picture of what you're doing and where your barrels are, what's moving, what's not, what's in storage, things like that. And that was really kind of some of the original visions and stuff like that we had. So that's product number two. And then within there as well, that's where we put all of our SaaS products. So everything from truck scheduling to rail scheduling to contracting to you name it. Everything goes up there. That's all really our SaaS business for the logistics too.
Got it.
And
Okay.
then lastly, we go back to Conformi. So that was the original when it was Vantage ONG, and there was the compliance side of the business. When I exited out of there, they did a little bit of just a revamp on the business. They changed the name. Gosh, I want to say it was Comply Shield, I think was the product name at the time. So
Okay.
they changed it to Conformi, and they renamed the company Conformi. And then in late 2022, we went in and merged that back into our business. When I exited there, this is sorry. This is nothing to do with me, but that business didn't make another sale for about 3 years until we came back and picked them back up. And we've just gotten them out of the tire ruts and stuff.
Got
And
it.
now we're introducing them to all of our clients over here and starting to get this business humming. And
Okay.
then,
Another value add on. Okay.
yeah. So Conformi is just that it's a legal registry. We'll monitor it. We'll tag everything. Your dashboards change so you can see what you're responsible for, what's changing in industry for regs and compliance and stuff like that. You're still responsible to make those changes afterwards, but you don't need a whole team to be on top of that, looking after that, things like that.
Right. Okay. So,
Got three solutions.
right. Okay. Thanks. That's good. So, let's just keep going with Conformi where we left off there at the end. So,
Sure.
Conformi. So it is a solution that will. So the value. Sorry. Let's start off with the ideal customer persona. Like, is this best? Like, who's the customer? Is it a midstream company? Is it a producer? Is it a service company? Something else?
Typically speaking, midstreamers are they're our bread and butter. They're our prototypical, the people that we really want.
Okay.
And the reason being, I mean, they don't have any production, don't have any end use, but they've got all the logistics in the middle. So they
Right.
rail things, they truck things, they pipe things, they
Complexity.
ship things, they store things, they blend things. So that they touch everything that we want to do.
Okay.
But that said, as you start to go outside of that, some producers are a fit for us, but they're not the greatest fit for us because they've got 1,000 batteries out there, and it doesn't make sense to put a terminal boss panel on every single battery. That just doesn't make
Right.
sense. And so that hub and spoke system, which I'm very aware of, I think in the oil and gas side, you got 1,000 little producing wells, and they all come into one centralized place. That's where you need a terminal
The
boss.
first
So that's
gathering.
where that
Okay.
kind of fits.
Got it.
And
Okay.
then
Okay.
from there, we've touched into some other industries just to explore and see if it does fit in other places. And lo and behold, it fits for a lot of aggregate products. Anything that we can weigh or meter, that's where it fits really, really well.
Awesome. Come back to that one. Great. Okay. So ideal customer number one would be midstream companies, period. And then
Yeah.
depending on the producer and how big, I imagine how big they are. If they, I've also seen it too, where a producer ends up taking on some activities in their business and assets in their business that kind of looks like midstream. So maybe that's a better fit. So it really depends on like what their operation is.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
as well, like there is, we do a little bit with the downstream. So like on the refining side, or let's say propane heads out to a wholesaler and then out to retail.
Yeah.
We'll do stuff down on that downstream side, I guess, a little bit more. But midstreamer, that's where we find most of our tools and assets.
Got it. Okay. More complexity. Okay, great. And then, so I think the value kind of makes sense for a midstreamer. We'll say put Conformi on pause for a second. So that makes sense. You're looking at all this different data coming in, different volumes, shipping, labels and tickets, etc. So this is the one-stop shop that has all this information. Wheelhouse. Wheelhouse also is, we'll call it like hardware, flow meter, etc. Agnostic. So whether it's terminal boss you tie into or XYZ solution that a company already has, you'll tie into all of it. So really low friction. And then value for the customer. I know it's kind of a loaded question.
Totally. That's okay.
I assume it kind of like it depends on like how complex. Is there a way? I don't know whether you can give me an actual number of like a typical midstream business of this size can expect to have a 700 times return on invested capital with our solution, or like maybe you can give me like the parts of how you put together that value proposition. Just somehow someone can think about how would I start considering how to calculate the value that I would receive from Vantage.
Sure. And so maybe I'll start with the terminal boss and then I'll go up to Wheelhouse and we'll leave Conformi on the side there for a
We'll
second.
get there. Yeah, sure.
So terminal boss, fairly straightforward. In a lot of cases, it's really just automating that facility. So in the past, there's people, if you go back far enough, it was clipboards and paper, right? And then as you kind of move forward in time, then it became, okay, there's an automation tool there. Maybe it was terminal boss back in the day, but it's still, you get 3 tickets and, one to the facility, one with the truck driver, one to wherever that truck driver is going. And then people start manually entering this stuff into systems. So I'm just kind of walking through kind of just follow the molecule for a second, and then we'll kind of take a step back and say, okay, this is where we see all the savings at each of these. So it does depend for sure. But So now that ticket gets out there and you're manually entering in all this stuff here. And then before you know it, somebody's fat fingered that. And at the end of the month, the volumes don't match the invoices. Now you got a whole bunch of back office people that have to get fired up and find all these different things and sort that out. And then on top of that, it gets pushed back to the commercial side, and they're trying to revamp all their game plans and their volumes and their ups and downs and stuff to balance that out. And then it heads over to the risk side, and hopefully that they haven't put any financial hedges in place that are outside of those controls or those types of volumes.
Right.
So there's probably 5 or 6 different people that all need to touch this exact same information, but just touch it in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go right back to the operations side, we've had one of our clients there. So they came back and said, listen, 2 to 3 hours per person on site per day. So 2 to 3 hours out of their 8. So 37.5% time savings. Now, it's not to say that they can just get rid of these guys. Okay, now they can start working on the different projects that they got lined up here for doing this or doing that or whatever. It's just, let's let those guys focus on operating the plants. That's what they're good at. That's probably that's the safest way to let those guys do it. Don't bog those guys down in data entry or tracking tickets down, I mean, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the life cycle of it. So if we start on the operations side, so we see 30 to 40% savings for the people on site, just getting some of the, let's call it the less exciting tasks off their desks.
Okay,
It's not an exciting business what we do, but it is a wildly important one.
those are the fun ones, totally. The necessities. Yeah.
They are. And so when that information gets into the trading, and I go back to my old days of trading and say, okay, if I could have that information instantly versus or within 10 minutes versus, okay, I've now got to wait for the day to finish. And then I got to charge all my people in the morning with 2 hours a day of putting all this information together. So in our office alone, again, we're probably 2 hours a day of 8 people sitting there. So again, you just look at all the time saved per person, and we can go through every salary and say, okay, there's 25% of our day just vaporized because it's all just sitting here now for you. So that's in office, and then this information moves over to the risk side. Now the risk guys, they get pretty good at estimating what was moving over the last couple of days when we got to that size, but like in the shoulder seasons when things are ramping up or things are ramping down, like there's just a wild amount of variability in these in the hedges.
Okay.
And so you got to know exactly what that is. So if they go in, they put on too many hedges or don't put on enough, and we move the incorrect amount of volume against this stuff here, and something goes different in the market, I mean, this is where hundreds of thousands, if not millions, can be lost almost instantly. And there's nothing you can do to get that kind of stuff back. So you get one of those misses, your whole month is gone. Debatably, your season's gone too. So each one of these has a little piece, a little component to it. And then as you get to the back office, we're just doubling down on the work that they have to do. So there's 10 to 20% just trying to find the different errors that are in there and stuff like that, or go back and stuff. So it is a massive time savings around the people. But the biggest thing is, like, when we go into these places, it's usually understand their business. We lay out what we think we can do for them, and we understand their requirements and what they're looking for. And then we try to put together an estimate of, okay, this is what we kind of see based on what we know inside and outside and everything like that. Bring it back to them, and they'll kind of go, yeah, check. Nah, that doesn't really work in our business. It works this way. Okay, no problem. Let's clean that up. We'll readjust our numbers, and then we come out with something. So,
and that's all like a process that you run with a customer to say, maybe to really simplify it in my mind is, here are the 8 or 10 buckets of potential value of our solution for your business. Let's go through and say, these 6 apply, these ones don't apply. And then for those 6, actually do the calculations to say, here's the expected range of value or risk mitigation that you'd have. Okay. So it's a tailored approach.
It is very much so, because everybody does, like, we're all doing the same things, like in the oil and gas side, but it is, each process is slightly different. And we don't want to be making people change, to wrap their arms around us. We want to wrap our arms around the business and, move with your business a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense.
80% of it is pretty straightforward, 20% of it a little bit tailored.
But you guys do all that work for the customer. It's not like they've got no lift. You're going to ask them a bunch of questions. You're going to run them through this. And what is it like? After a meeting, maybe a few calls afterwards, you're going to say, here's like the summarized business case. Is that the process?
Yeah. And that's really it. Like the most difficult part that we probably have is because we touch a few different groups. So we touch operations, we touch commercial, we touch accounting, things like that. Sometimes we can't get to every single group, and we don't know all the people. So
Right.
We have to reach as high as we possibly can because someone's responsible for commercial and ops and something like that. So we're trying to get those C-suite people, but the process is exactly right. If we have to go through it one by one with each of them and we bring it all together and we tell that person up top, this is the total savings and opportunity we think is here. But typically, like a terminal boss, like it's a payback in under a couple of years. On the day to day, like the SaaS solutions and stuff like that, it's a payback within 2 to 3 months.
Yeah. Okay.
So all this stuff
Awesome.
is really quite quick.
Brilliant. Which is good, right? 2 to 3 months, and then the rest of that year is
It's gravy for
gravy.
them.
But I think also what I heard is the biggest potential value is on the risk side of the business, and you can't always predict that. But like, you could all of a sudden, if you're tracking this, if there was a big like near miss, all of a sudden your SaaS solution could pay itself off in like hours, right? If it
Probably
avoided
for
$1 million
15 minutes.
oops. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was always a tough one. Like the risk guys would say, what are you moving? How are you moving it? And you make your best estimates on what you're going to do in a month. But
Yeah.
if you're not, and propane is a really difficult one because that stuff's getting billed every single day. And so if it warms up for a week, well, it's not as much propane moving. That's just the life of it. Okay, but these guys
Sure.
put hedges on at the beginning of the month, and they're knocking them off throughout the month. If something changes and they don't know all the details, like it gets out of whack really quickly if you're not right on top of it.
Yeah, that
Butane's
makes
a little
sense.
bit different and a little more steady eddy,
Right.
and then different products have their own life cycles and things like that. But
Right.
yeah, it's
Right.
keeping
Okay. Yeah.
everybody on the exact same page.
Okay. And yeah, and that again, thanks for that analogy, or I guess insight. That makes sense too. How it's hard to say, like, yes, a midstream company will, save $50,000 a month or whatever that value is, because it totally depends on many factors for that business. Okay, and then
Absolutely.
I guess really quickly on the Conformi,
Yep.
so the value proposition there, if I repeat back to you, it sounds like, so you get a customer set up on this solution, and it is going to let them know with some type of alarms or regular reports. Here's what you need to do: activities, reporting, inspections, whatever that may be, for each of your facilities, on whatever cadence, annual, biannual, whatever it may be. And then I think I heard also, does it as there's regulatory changes, it also prompts businesses, customers, to say, hey, these are the changes that have occurred, or they're coming down the pipeline, pun
Yep.
intended. Here's what you need to start thinking about in order to make sure that you comply. Is that essentially the two pieces of the business, or is there more?
You're exactly right. And I'd probably say there's a third one just over on the side here. So it's a bit of an insurance policy for the board. Let's call it here. So at the end of the year, probably a president or a CEO and debatably even a board member have to sign off on this. Yeah, everything's in compliance. We're in good shape. We've done everything we possibly can. Do they really know that or not? And so what we can do within the system is map this out to the people that are responsible for each of these different pieces as well.
Right.
So let's just use your name, John. If you're responsible for this directive at this facility here, and maybe you moved into a different role or something like that, okay, who's going to look after this now? Like the way it's set up is there's so many there's a compliance group within each company, and they're keeping track of this stuff, and then it's, well, who do I send this to? Like, how are we going to get this done or updated or grandfathered or cleaned up?
Right.
Okay, don't worry about that anymore. Like, we'll look after that piece. And then, John, when you moved into a different role, we put Steve into this role. And now when that directive comes in or that change happens, it pops up on his desk. Hey, here's what it is right now. Here's what the change is. Here's how much time you got to get back in compliance. And
Right.
off you go.
Yeah. And then
So
I
we've
have
got
less headache because Steve just knows what to do. I get less calls from Steve. He's prompted with what he needs to take care of.
correct. And then from there, you can see as he works that stuff out, and he can keep some updates and some calendars and some mapping and stuff like that within the system as well. So someone up top can say, yeah, that's being knocked out. It's being done and cleaned up, and we're good to go. We're in compliance, and there's 2 or 3 things out of compliance, but we know we're working on them, or things like that. So just a nice dashboard to say, here's where you are, here's your legal registry and everything you're responsible for, and yeah, let's just look after it.
Okay. Makes sense. Good. Well, I think that's good coverage for your solutions today. Ideal customer value, how you go about determining what the value is for the customer. So maybe moving on, it's always, people are always interested in how did you get through the challenging periods of your business, as much as you want to talk about it. So I know in the
Sure.
pregame or pre-call, we chatted a little bit about, if I have the year right, I think it was just recently, 2022 was one of the more challenging years.
I believe so. Yeah.
Maybe if you wanted to dive into that a little bit, it sounded like you made a few
Sure.
decisions on like the sales processes and business decisions, and maybe determining to scale a little bit too quickly, which is a very, very common decision in businesses. So yeah, walk me through about that, your fetal position moments.
Yeah, those are some good ones. So, I mean, 2020, 250,000 revenue. We probably lost $250,000. I'm not sure anymore. But that was our first year. We knew this was going to happen, so we expected that. 2021, I think we jumped up to about 1.3 million. I think plus or minus $50, but we're break even pretty much.
Right on.
And then so we said, okay, well, that was a heck of a year. Like we just grew 500%. We're debatably on the doorstep of profitability here. Like, well, let's get this thing going. So off we go. So we hire up a couple extra experts from the industry. And this is entirely my fault, and probably not the downfall, just the slap in the face again for us.
You're the CEO. You own it all anyways. End of the day, the
Yeah,
buck stops with you. So yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
well, own it. So I came from the marketing side of the business. We already had something that everybody wanted. So it's just trying to make that as valuable as you possibly can.
Yeah.
You come over to the sales side and nobody understands what we're doing. And, but there's a sales process, and you'll understand much more about this stuff than I certainly did back then. I'm starting to get probably a fraction of what you understand now. But we start going through this process. I thought people just knew how to sell, and I relied on my relationships in 2021. We started growing the business, and I can articulate the problems and I can relate to these people. And so it's going good. And then so we grabbed an expert. He was on the terminal bus side. We grabbed an expert that was great on rail, that knew how to move them and all the different challenges there. And we grabbed an expert over here and something else. And I just assumed that they had all these relationships and they could just sell and
Go
just
do it.
get going.
Yeah.
I don't think they made one sale. Um, it might have been one, but I don't know. It was very little. So
Yeah.
I think we only grew by, I don't know. I think we went from 1.3 to 1.6 or something like that. So
Right.
maybe
With more
20%
costs.
growth.
With more cost
And
from the
that's
team.
unbelievable. We thought because we'd grown so well in 2021 that now we just need to get some more people, and we'll grab an expert in each field, pay them a bunch of money, and they'll grow as quick as we did on the other side. And 100% is just, it falls back to me. We didn't give them a plan. We didn't set them up for success. We didn't have a process for going through our sales. We didn't know how to track our sales. We didn't track the processes of them, where each client was within that sales process. And before you know it, we get to the end of 2022, and we lost $900,000, and grown revenue by maybe 25 or something like that. So that was a pretty big kick in the junk, and so we had to let a good chunk of those guys go, unfortunately, and just kind of reshape the biz. And that was a tough one, but some of them were buds and still are buds, and hey, it just was what it was. But then it was, how are we going to pull this thing together for 2023 and get this thing back on track?
Right. So before you jump into that, so the big, that difficult moment in the business was, I think what I heard was the transition of founder-led sales to a sales team. And I hear that all the time, right? It is an extremely challenging transition period. So you talked about that. You as the founder, you very much understand the problem. You know the different personas of people within the business, what they do, how they use the solution, how it makes their lives better. You're the one going out there, hitting the street, doing the sales calls. And then a lot of people do this. It's, okay, I'm going to bring in salespeople. They're experienced in different areas, and I expect them to be able to do their thing and run it. And ultimately, it doesn't work out. And there's a lot, like you could spend a whole day unpacking why that doesn't work out. But I like how you shared it. It was a lot of not setting them up for success. Essentially taking their tool sets, I think you said, is like taking what they're good at and then making sure they have some infrastructure, some skeleton of process in order to execute on.
And I think even a step worse was, we didn't even bring in salespeople. It was just, we brought in an expert on terminal boss. We brought in an expert in rail, but that expert just knew how to move rail. They didn't know how to sell rail, talk to people. So we were even one step worse. We just assumed that, I came from over there, I should be able to do this. So these guys, they came from over there, they should be able to do that. And
A
we
painful
crossed our fingers.
lesson.
Yeah, that was a real good lesson. So yeah, we got to the end of 2022, and that was a crappy one. Like it was November 30th. Within a day, there, we got to give some papers out and say, listen, we'll do some working notice because we just don't have any cash here right now. What do we do? But then all of December 2022, it was, okay, how are we going to clean this up? There's a great product and solution and idea here, but we just tried to blow it up too soon. I
Right.
think at
Okay.
the end of the day, and that was some pretty quick realizations that we just tried to scale too quick. We had no processes in place. We didn't have great quality people in each of these different roles that we needed, and
Right.
so that was
Okay.
that was the job of 2023. We had to start getting great processes, great people. So just upgrading everything and stuff.
And then let's
And
just before you jump in there, we'll jump in right
yeah,
away. So it was a down year. You spent a bunch of money within the business, and then you didn't get the return on that investment through different types of investments to get the revenue up. But it sounds like you have some scars from it. But were you at the point of like dire straits, saying, "Oh my goodness, we had such a bad year, we got to close the doors"? You weren't. It doesn't sound like you were there. Is that correct?
no, I mean, it feels like we're always right on that edge, right? Like
Sure.
we pound dollars into like people and product like every day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's like we're always riding the line. So I mean, you can say being a little bit crazier, or you can say we're being really efficient with our money. And so we use every single dollar to make sure we're pushing this as fast as we can.
Got it.
But
Okay.
yeah, that year was again, it wasn't we had enough revenue that was coming in the door that it could support this X. We tried to get to Y. And so once we kind of pulled ourselves back to X, it was almost break even again, just instantly.
Okay.
So we backed off there a little bit and just got ourselves under control. But then very, very quickly, it was, okay, we got to start getting this thing going again.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And
And
that's
you keep
where,
telling me, come on, let's talk about how we got it going better. Let's stop talking about the downside in that year. So
yeah.
so let's get there. So you had this lesson. You realized, or not realized, you had to let a few people go, people that weren't a good fit for the sales side of the business. So I know you talked about bringing on a rock star CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, and learning what is that title, anyways.
Yeah.
Top honcho for sales. So what else was part of the new execution plan to get you on that better trajectory in 23, I guess?
So right at the end of 2022, we brought in a person. His name was Alex Danzinger, just a contractor, but a very accomplished salesperson.
Right.
He started laying out some better processes for us. Now, mind you, he was moving into a new role and a new life kind of thing. So we only had him for a month or two. So it kind of started getting us thinking about a lot of different things. But then he introduced us to a gentleman, Abdul Kuru, and who ultimately became our CRO. This guy's got awesome processes, and just this is how we go after sales.
Brilliant.
It's there's a process to it. There's relationships, and there's personas, and there's different needs and wants for everybody. And look at this one. Wow, I just pick up the phone and just kind of did this in the past.
What is the process of this? Okay. Yeah.
But you're right. Like we struggled with getting out of that founder-led sale. No problem. So we're revamping. We saw there's a problem. Now it's time to pivot. Let's start fixing it. Get moving on. And so we head off in 2023, and we got rolling. So we cranked up the sales again. Now I will say, like, still very, very much so, the majority is still founder-led sales. But we've got a good, solid team out here now that are all starting to get into their groove and stuff like that. Like, so what was 100% before, or maybe 80 or 90% before me, was okay. Last year was maybe 60%. This year, I'm hoping that's only 40%, and the following year maybe it's 20%, and
Right.
I'll disappear. Like, I'm always going to be part of that stuff. I'll never get away from it entirely, but yeah, we want to get a team here. They're the guys that are going to scale this stuff and really make it exciting and get it out there for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
that's a good
yeah.
strategy, right? Is how do you replace those things on the ladder that you're doing today to get you focused on the things that like you're good at and what you need to do as a CEO? I think those are the right activities to be doing. So makes sense for a good plan.
Yeah. And I find just the toughest ones too. Like, mentally, I want to go back to this. I want to do this. It's actually a lot of fun. It's this is how I show my value. But I think the things that we've got ahead of us here, and these other little businesses that we want to get started around this to help support Vantage or support different components of the business, these are going to be the really exciting ones. And I've got to get my mindset over here a little bit. And these guys, they got to know that they're responsible for that chunk, and they're going to do great at it and awesome. We're going to support them with systems and people and whatever. But there's just a balance to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like this is where I can start to do more damage. I gotta let go of the stuff that I was doing damage at before. I was doing really good, but it's just I can do more over here now. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've got to, because there's a
Totally.
group of people in here that we got to look after and make sure that they've got opportunity and all kinds of cool stuff in front of them.
I love that you've realized that, like that self-awareness and knowing, being able to assess where do I need to spend my time going forward to get this business to that next milestone or growth stage that you need to see for you, your investors, everyone involved. So I think that's great. And it can be a
Yeah,
ceiling for a lot of owners, CEOs, is how do you get out of those things you do really well that get you to the current stage of the business? It's kind of that
yeah,
glass ceiling, that false ceiling. How do you blow through that? And usually it
yeah.
comes down to like, where are you focusing your time, and how are you replacing things that need to come off, like getting people to take over things that need to come off your to-do list. And usually with people, well, ideally with people that can do it way better than you, right? Things that
And you're nailing it. Like it's you got to find a way to buy your time back a little bit, but buy it back with really good quality people.
100%.
And that person, if like we're going to need a fractional CFO here pretty quick. We don't quite have a role for a whole one, but let's get them lined up. We're a fractional CFO, and then got to start planning, because 2 years down the road we're going to need a full time one.
Right on.
Um,
Okay.
so like it's a myself and Alex now. It's a weekly. Hey, it's a strategy session, and we take the org chart and we take a couple other pieces of paper, and this is what we're talking about today. And then tomorrow, it's okay, what are we doing here on customer success, and how does this work between the commercial guys and the developers? And
Yeah, great strategy. Well, maybe we'll put that in the show notes too. Potentially looking to chat with fractional CFOs, which there
yeah,
are several. Not that you have to have one locally necessarily. Maybe that's what you want, but there's several local that are around.
there
Good ones.
are great people out there doing this stuff here, and we've chatted with a few of them. It's just trying to get that timing just lined up. So
Okay, well, kind of on the final notes here. I have one big question to answer at the end, which I think should be interesting. We'll see where it goes. So
sure.
maybe just leave us with where things are going for Vantage in the near medium future. What are maybe some big goals that you're looking at, where you're really focusing the business right now for the future? Give us a bit of a view, or like, what do you need for the business? One thing you talked about is the potentially a fractional CFO. Are you developing more solutions? You may bring on new investors. So anything about the future you wanted to kind of give us a viewpoint on, that'd be great.
Sure. So, so we're going to stick with the original plan. I mean, we've grown through acquisition, largely speaking.
Right.
We tend to, once we get in with people, we tend to fit in quite well with them, and they tend to start, kind of transitioning over to us fairly quickly. So as they grow, we get to grow. As they sell off pieces, where we found, like a company like Plains, they sold a few facilities. Someone picked those up. Now that company is switching everything over to Terminal Boss. Great. So, yeah, so I think we're going to continue to grow through acquisition. Organically, we just can't grow as fast, but the guys are starting to get their hands around that. We are going to grow that way for sure.
Okay.
Some of the solutions that we've just bringing to market here as we speak are client portals and stuff. So every one of our terminal bosses now has a portal that these guys can open up to their customers. So rather than say Plains at 40 facilities having to go to probably 100 different clients that they have and getting all that information to them, just open up your portals. It's a self-serve center now. And the nice part is now we start to see people coming inbound to us versus us always having to chase and chase and chase, right?
Nice.
So we're trying to, as we've gotten to this point, and again, guys are hustling hard and working hard and stuff, but it's you've only got so many hours in the day and so many phone calls you can make. So now we get to slowly start seeing this thing coming inbound, and as they come in just to pick up their tickets, they can see everything that we do on the side.
Right. Which is a great strategy, because that is, they actually label it in the tech world. If I've understood exactly what you're applying there, is product-based sales, which can be extremely powerful. It's users, or like in your case, I guess, counterparties or customers of customers that are getting in. They get a flavor, they see the value, and they say, okay, I guess I got to ring up Vantage and now start paying them too for a solution. So that's awesome. Brilliant.
And I'm hopeful too, like these people, they're picking up at, a bunch of different terminal boss type facilities, but then they're picking up at other facilities that have other automation systems. I want those guys yelling at those guys to say, hey, tie this into Wheelhouse so I can just get all my stuff in one spot. And so
Right.
I can't remember what the term was called. I think it's like the little bighorn or something. You get your friends onto it or their friends onto it, and then they kind of get their friends onto it. So it's, trying to get them to really drive this and just help us kind of market this whole thing. But it's all about building out this network now.
Yeah.
And so that, hey, talking on this side of it, if that person wants to come out, like, it's going to be painful for them and 6 other people. Like, we want this to be tied and make this really, really stable, but make it such an awesome solution that, hey, when I move a truck, 10 minutes later, I've got every piece of information that I need. Nobody had to touch it. This all matches at the end of the month. I know where my positions are. And it just, it's a holistic view of this whole thing here. And it all starts down at the bottom though.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Anything else you wanted to leave
Oh,
listeners thinking about? Yeah.
yeah. So that's the exciting stuff on the biz side. We're out there chatting with every investor under the sun. You probably have a better understanding of a lot of this stuff than I do, but I'm starting to learn just what the investors are looking for and stuff like more, I don't know, more larger scale type investors, not the friends and families and
Sure.
stuff like that anymore.
Yeah.
We're out there looking for $3 to $5 million here right now. A lot of that is for some extra working capital. Potential acquisitions are moving down to the U.S., which we're going to have boots on the ground by July 1. And just go. We're growing at a good pace here these days, but it's largely been bootstrapped and we're limited by that. So like I said, 2023 was a big year for better process, better people, better everything. 2024 is our scaling. We are going to go back to trying to scale this, and we've got a 2 times it, or double this year, so 3.5 to 7 here this year.
Okay.
We've got a double one more time in 2025, and then I don't think we'll be able to keep up that pace. I haven't quite thought out that far. We haven't thought out that far. We got to really start doing more of these strategy sessions and stuff. But the goal is double this year, double next year, and then I think it just has to kind of level off a little bit. But we've got tons of new people in here. We're 25 people, probably be 28 or 9 by the end of the year. But we've gotten over the big humps and we've gotten lots of stuff built out and stuff. So, $1 million of business doesn't take 6 people anymore. It takes 1 extra person kind of thing, right? So now we're starting to see some of those scaling effects.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. And you go through those cycles where you're like, okay, this is getting more efficient. And then once you bring in some more cash and start to scale, all of a sudden you'll start to look at your numbers and go, oh, wow, like we're not running as efficiently anymore. But that's expected because you're scaling. It's like the cost of customer acquisition and trying new things as you scale just costs more money. So it's this constant evolving view of costs for the business. Okay.
Yeah. We've been fortunate and stuff and nailed down some grants and this and that and odds and ends and stuff, a little bit of cash here and there. But it's time to start finding like a real partner. And
Gotcha.
That's probably one more of our fault from back in the days. Like we didn't have like the best group of investors. There was no one there that could really help the business or push the business or do introductions or things like that. So this time around, when we find that partner, we really want to say, is there something they can bring to the table as well, not just the money?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
money plus.
About it.
Yeah, great way to think about it. Yeah, totally, for sure, and it can be extremely powerful way to do things. So the call out, we'll have contact information for you, Glenn, in the show notes. I'll put a quick little note around a potential opportunity to get involved with your team as an investor. You guys are looking to raise between 3 to 5 million. I'm sure at some point you'll have a short deck, so maybe people can get that.
And that's all already put together.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, great. That'll be great. And we could chat more offline too. Maybe have some ideas of who to connect with on that topic.
I appreciate it.
Great. Okay. So last question, we'll try it here. There's I should probably have given this to you beforehand, but a question that I want to try. So thinking about your entrepreneurial journey, even career. So things that you've learned and things that you would want to, or, concepts or lessons you want to pass on to other owners, other entrepreneurs on their journeys. So picture this, we'll keep it local here. So you're driving into downtown Calgary and there's a big billboard. What would you put on that billboard to to tell people, like shout out to small business owners or entrepreneurs getting into, or early stages of their journey? What's that one thing that you want to shout out and say, please focus on this, or make sure you do this? Anything that pops to mind?
Nothing maybe that pointed. It's probably more that just chin up, man. Yeah, like it's just a savage beating for the first little while and kind of a never ending one. But it's more that just just can you keep getting up kind of thing, right? Like
Keep going.
there's just so many things you don't know about. You don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know kind of thing. But as you get into it, you learn them quick and you figure it out. But then you're focused over here, and before you know it, there's a fire over there, and you got to go put that one out eventually. And it's like every day does get a little bit easier. We're not so responsive anymore, reactive.
Right.
It's now more proactive. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it's any one specific thing. It's more the just,
Keep
if you
going.
believe in it, keep going, man. Just chin up. You're going to be okay. It just takes a while to get people to understand what you're talking about. And you got to think about your message you're giving those guys, because if it's taking them a long time, you're just giving them the wrong message. You just got to change that a little bit, the way you're talking to them. There's just a whole bunch of little tiny beatings and stuff. But yeah, when go have your down days, go have your beer, go hang with the wife or whatever you got to do. But, tomorrow put the uniform back on, over to the hockey rink, play your guts out, and then back home, take your uniform off, get back into family life. And yeah, so
I like it.
just chin up.
Chin up. I like
Yeah.
it. I'll even maybe try to rebrand it too. You said grit for sure. Everything you said was grit.
Oh, yeah.
Grit, right?
Just see it through.
And
Like
then
there's the never-ending group of people that just, and I still don't know how businesses make money sometimes, when there's the tax man over here, there's business over there, people beating you up over there.
it's a tough landscape.
Yeah, it is.
Totally.
But I wouldn't change it. It's the best way to me, be more part of my family and stuff like that, see more things, do more things with them, a lot more flexible. But when the kids go down, the wife goes to sleep, you get to work for me till midnight. So be it. However it's got to work. So we're more flexible, but just more on demand and stuff like that. But
Great. Thanks for sharing. Awesome.
That's my final words.
Chin up. All right. Maybe I'll get the board built. Well,
I'm
Glenn.
sure I'll with it, man. Yep.
Awesome. Glenn, thanks. This has been fantastic. I've enjoyed the conversation. We went into areas a little bit deeper than we have before, so I've learned a few things as well. I think there's a lot of great insights that definitely several different personas of viewers, people in my network, and new people in my network will definitely value. So appreciate you being one of the several owners, CEOs that said yes to my ask to come on the podcast. So thank you very much.
To that end, I thank you as well. And no different than me, this is a new direction and business and idea and concept for you. So I'm here to support and help out. But thanks for digging into and asking some questions around some of the things. I glance over it sometimes because I think everyone should just know this.
Totally.
Ask for 20 years. So thanks for slowing those down and just getting into a little more detail so people can understand that stuff. And it's important and it's exciting and it's things that everybody's a part of, whether they think it or not. You all use this stuff and want this stuff. So we get to be part of a larger system. So really appreciate just getting us on here. And this was super fun. A lot more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Awesome.
So,
okay, good. There's always a little bit of nerve, right? Everyone does. Everyone has. Yeah, well,
yep,
hey, it's been my pleasure. So, all right, Glenn. Yep. So I'll put some contact information in the show notes and I'll let you know when this actually goes live. But thanks again. We'll chat soon.
Sounds awesome. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Take care, bud.
See ya. Bye-bye.
All the best.